Welcome back to the big issue on 97.2 City FM and also on City TV, discussing Agenda 111 and its feasibility. The president's vision is to basically put hospitals in every part of the country. Was launched symbolically on Tuesday. The president seems determined, but there are those who are also raising legitimate questions about where we're going to find the money from and how we're going to keep it up. And those are questions the president's advice on health is trying to help us with in studio today. We've heard from Ahmed Farhan and Bright. So now we'll go to Parliament and hear from Alhassan Suhuyini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Now, Suhuyini, the leader of your party has described the government's Agenda 111 hospital as an afterthought. Does it really matter if it's an afterthought? There are those who say, well, that was a government that was known for a significant investment in health. If another government has come and has decided to expand on that vision of yours, you should be happy. Why are you saying it's an afterthought and saying it cannot even be done and whatnot? You should be happy. Where's all the negativity coming from?
Well, Godfred, just to put it in perspective, let me say good morning to Doc. He's someone I've known for a very long time, followed your profession as one operating in the medical field and admired it. Not so much your politics, though. And then let me also say good morning to our colleagues who are joining us virtually. Godfred, I think it's fair to say that first of all, President Mahama did not say it can't be done. I have to put it on record because I know the spin that go with some of these things. What he said was that it was an afterthought and went on to raise certain concerns about our debt portfolio as a country and how that can even impact on the infrastructure that is necessary, and why he, in his view, there's so much money we had, the windfall we had from, for example, the oil fields and the revenue that we had under President Akufo-Addo, if it had been put to good use, like infrastructure, we wouldn't be discussing this matter. That is just, in a nutshell, what he sought to say, and not to say it cannot be done. So let us, and I am very particular about the need to address that before we move on. Now, I came across a publication titled Primary Health Care System, Comprehensive Case Study from Ghana by Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research and World Health Organization. And one of the conclusions, if you permit me, I'll share with you, reads, quote, "New resources are necessary in the health sector to address the resource inadequacies, but it is more critical to address inefficiencies in the use of available resources." Maybe I should repeat that for emphasis. New resources are necessary in the health sector to address the resource inadequacies, but it is more critical to address inefficiencies in the use of available resources. Proper management of resources requires evidence-based planning, alignment of resources to priorities, cost-effective interventions, effective implementation, and efficient monitoring and accountability systems. Gains in allocative and technical efficiency can be maximized if there is financial integration at all levels of the financing architecture, unquote. So this is a conclusion from the Primary Healthcare System Comprehensive Case Study from Ghana by Alliance for Health Policy Systems Research and the World Health Organization. And this conclusion is especially, relevant to the discussion that we are having today. The resources are not enough for our health requirement as a country, but the available resources, the research is saying, if put to prudent use, can go a long way. So I'll, in line with my opening comments in defense of what President Mahama said, I'll take Dr. Asari's advice for us not to say that it cannot be done. Because you see, especially dealing with the NPP, you need to understand what is said before you make a conclusion. We said that one village, one dam could not be done. They gave us dugouts. And when we questioned it, they told us that that's what they meant. And that's what 250,000 could be used for. But our understanding of dam is what led us to conclude that it could not be done. But they had a different understanding. And so they did the dugout. That did not even last the dry season. But they told you they did it. That's why we can't say this 111 cannot be done. Again, they told us they will make sure that every district will have a factory to create jobs for the teeming unemployed youths. That every district will have a factory. We said it could not be done because our understanding was that every district was going to be provided a factory run by government to reduce unemployment. They came back to tell us that that's not what they meant. And that giving tax relief to existing companies that are older than even the vice president amounts to one district, one factory. So you have to be careful when you say that 111 cannot be done. Because you need to understand what it's meant for. So let us take that advice from him. I mean, they told us a lot of things. The cathedral, for example, you remember. Can I proceed?
I'll let you proceed. The specifications for this are quite clear.
No, I'll get there. I'll get to the specifications. I'm talking about resource allocations.
Okay.
You understand? And we are talking about the available resource and what perhaps it can be used for. And let us not forget that we are coming again from a ministry and that has just finished dealing with Sputnik V. And it also had to do with resource allocations and how those contracts were awarded, whether at the ministry, whether the presidency was involved, and all of that. So we are asking ourselves, when you have a flagship program, for example, Godfred, under Agric Ministry, Planting for Food and Jobs, it's under the Agric Ministry. When you have a flagship program like Free SHS, it is under the Ministry of Education. So you begin to wonder why when you want to procure Frontiers Alliance under health to take care of COVID, testing at our airport, it's done at the presidency.
Not true.
Well, that's what the health minister told us when he appeared before the appointments committee. That we have no knowledge about it. Then again, you get to construction of hospitals, and then again, the suggestion is that there is a special committee or task force or whatever at the presidency that is in charge of this too.
This is a question you'll be raising in Parliament.
No wonder, it's something that we should all be raising, Godfred. No wonder the president will say the health minister has suffered. Because he's like Simpapenian at the ministry. No wonder he will say he has suffered. But you see, when the former president says this is an afterthought, and I agree again with Dr. Nsiah-Ansari, that we need or we have an opportunity to make this country, a health hub for, tourists. But we are too late in the day. But as is often said, better late than never. But we need to first of all admit that we have delayed the process of making us a health hub for, tourists. And let me share with you the MPP's own promise in their manifesto of 2016. Page 34, G. They said they will upgrade all existing district hospitals. Where they do not establish one, the NPP's aim is for each district to have at least one hospital. Yes. That was 2016.
Yes.
That mandate of 4 years expired in 2021 without a block laid in any district to fulfill this promise. And when I listened to Dr. Nsiah-Ansari, when he was making his narration of how this 88 started and then metamorphosized into 111, he made the point that it was during the COVID that the discussion came about, that every district, they noticed districts didn't have a hospital. Clear evidence of the afterthought. After they made this promise, they abandoned this promise until COVID hit. Because, in fact, like very, very typical of this NPP administration, the things are said and not meant. So they made this promise, but they abandoned it and forgot it until, like he said, COVID hit. Then they came with 88 hospitals as an afterthought. Then we said, well, it's an afterthought, but yes, let us give them a chance. 88, we have been waiting. What happened? The president went to Nkranza. I'll share the story with you. Akufo-Addo to cut short for construction of first hospital under 88 new district hospitals project. President Akufo-Addo is today, September 9, 2020, cutting short for the commencement of construction for a 100-bed district hospital in the Nkranza South municipality. The ceremony will mark the commencement of construction of first out of the 88 district hospitals set to be built by the Akufo-Addo government across the country. This was, in September 2020. They told us they were cutting the sword. Very typical of the government again, with pomp and pageantry. Sword cutting was held. And that this was supposed to be the first of 88. The pictures are here. The sword cutting was done beautifully. Well, this government is so lucky, unlike previous government where 200 schools had to be head counted around the country. Nobody counts the number of sword cuts that we get. But I'll share with you some. After the Nkranza, or before the Nkranza, you had 19th August 2020. President Akufo-Addo has cut short for the construction of a 2-story 100-bed capacity hospital at Shama on his final day tour of the Western region. The district hospital project, which will cost 42 million euros, is being funded by the governments of Ghana and China. Take note of the cost. 42 million. That is what Nana Akufo-Addo brought to Parliament, and Parliament approved for the construction of Shama District Hospital. 42 million. He brought it. So if today they're giving you another cost, in fact, we have talked about Nkranza. We don't know what has happened to Nkranza. There's Shama. Shama, we know that nothing is happening there as we speak because
that I can
we have seen.
Hold on, Dr. That I can confirm. The Shama one.
Nothing is happening there as we speak.
Nothing has been done.
But again, just don't, Godfred, don't even focus on nothing happening there. Focus on the fact that this was a government that told us they will need 42 million. Euros to construct a district hospital. That's why I was telling you earlier that we shouldn't rush into saying it can be done. So when they come touting that this is a record and then they are going to do it with less cost, don't say it can be done, because like the One Village One Dam, they would give you something and tell you that that's what they promise. It is done. So Shama, we don't know. Nothing is happening. The sword was cut. 25th
You will
October.
explain to us later.
25th October, Jubilee House Communication Bureau. They published this. President Akufo-Addo has cut the sword for the construction of a 40-bed municipal hospital at Pong in the Greater Accra region. The president told the gathering that government has secured funding towards the construction and equipping of 12 hospitals with the associated staff accommodation facilities for hospital workers. Godfred, I can go on and on about the number of swords that have been cut, if that's a language like that, by this president to construct hospitals, either 40 beds or 100 beds in the last 2-3 years. Even if we had just focused on those that had their sword cut, like the General Hospital, like the Shama, like the Nkranza, like the Pong, if we just focus on those, would we be needing an agenda such as this, or it is just media suites, publicity stunt, another rhetoric to take pressure off government in the failings that we see all over? And on the issue of cost, or not even cost, source of funding first. You look at the explanation so far and you just can't wrap your head around it. So in 2020, when the president woke up because of COVID, and perhaps was reminded of his promise to ensure that every district had a hospital, and announced the 88, the budget for 2020 made provisions for 635 million
Cities.
Yes, Ghana cedis. For those 88 hospitals. It has moved to 111. And we are still told, we are taking the explanation, we are still told that that is the money that is available, the 600 that was allocated. Wait a minute. Now, if you look at the 2021 mid-year, review, clearly Appendix 4D, page 100, 600 million is captured as being utilized.
No, please.
Utilized.
No,
Look,
it's
I have it in my car.
allocated.
No, it is
Please,
not allocated.
please.
This is a public. This is a document.
It's a public
document.
So you can
And it is in parliament.
it's allocated.
No,
And you are a member of parliament.
no.
You have to
Dr.
understand
This
is easily verifiable.
You verify it.
Yes,
You have the document
allocation
with you.
is different from utilized.
Listen,
Please,
635 million
You have it.
was what was
You have the
allocated.
document.
Yes, I do. I'll pull it for you right now. I have the soft
Then
copy
don't
here.
go on there before you
Then don't go
pull
there.
it.
Then you see if it's
No,
spent
we
or
are still on the
allocated.
set. We are still on the set. But I'm saying that.
No, but we are
making the
discussing this matter now.
Yes, so I'm saying that I've given you the source. Why is it difficult for you to even also pull it out yourself?
No, my producers
I've
are
said,
at it, but
yes,
since
I've
you
said
also at it.
the mid-year review, Appendix 4D,
Mid-year
page
review.
100, page 100.
You say spent.
Yes, spent, utilize. That's how it is captured. Utilize. And in fact,
I'm even surprised
Dr.
Minister of Finance have come out. They've come out to explain.
Yes,
And you don't want to
that
take
is
that
why
one.
I am surprised.
No, you don't want to take. You don't want to take that
That
one.
is why I am surprised
And
at
you
your
are here spinning,
argument.
running,
No. That's why I am surprised at your
I
argument.
thought you are coming
The
to
Ministry
do-
of Finance has not denied the fact that they have captured it as utilized. They have simply given an explanation. So I'm surprised that you are.
So have you read the Minister of
I have
Finance?
read
Listen,
it.
what
I
did
have
they-
read
what
it.
did they say?
That's what I'm saying. Well,
What did they say? You don't take it.
You see.
Because you want to spin run it and run it.
Before I even tell you what Minister of Finance, it is important
What
for
did
you
Minister
to
of Finance
agree.
say?
No, it is important
What
for
did
you
the
to
Minister
understand.
of
You are
Finance
spinning,
say?
Doc, and that's why I say I admire your professionalism in the health sector, but not your politics, because you are using that professionalism to spin for the New Patriotic Party, which is not fair. I think that if we are discussing the issue, if you accuse me of spinning, it is important that I point it out to you that you are spinning. Yes, page 100.
I said Minister of Finance have come full of explanation.
And I'm
They
saying
don't
that
want to
Minister
take
of Finance has not denied that they captured it as utilized. But you are here denying that they captured it as utilized, and that is why we are having to stop to check on this.
I don't think Minister of Finance
that's not what you should be doing.
I don't think Minister of Finance said
No,
Yes.
gentlemen.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Yes. So I'm saying that first
Okay,
of all,
hold on. So Appendix 4D,
4D.
expenditure and allocation and utilization of 2020 COVID-19 budget.
Right.
Page 100. I'm looking for support to households. Then there's health response, supplies equipment. Then there's health infrastructure.
What is the amount?
Health infrastructure says provision of health infrastructure, Agenda 111, district and regional hospitals. 2020 budget 600. Release or utilization.
Release or utilization.
The 600. But release does not necessarily mean utilization. It says release and or utilization.
But look at the caption. The caption is what? Expenditure and utilization.
It says expenditure, allocation, and
utilization.
Exactly. And where is the
but they say
utilization
the money has been
captured?
allocated.
That is what. Look, Godfred, that's the point I
have you
made.
seen it?
No, that's the point I made. Listen,
Have you seen what-
listen.
no, you read
It
it.
is not, you
Everybody
are
has
doing
said
the
it.
spin. You are doing the spin. Listen,
Everybody has
go
seen
on.
it.
Yes. So it is captured.
It is
I've
clarified the matter.
It is
You've clarified the matter.
It is captured
He has
as
clarified.
utilization.
It is captured as release or utilization.
Fantastic. So I'm saying that allocation was made for in the 2020 for 88. This amount was supposed to be for 88.
Yes.
Now it is carried forward and reported to us as utilization. I mean, usually, and you can check all our previous budgets. Godfrey, check previous budget. In this column, when it is reported by the finance ministry, they are reporting monies that have been released and utilized. That is the column. That is what.
That is the practice.
That is the practice.
Okay.
So now the finance ministry is not denying that this money has not been utilized. They are simply saying that it has been put in an account at GIF.
It's not true.
But it is yet to be disbursed. Do you understand?
You are not satisfied.
No. I can't be satisfied because
Why
you
can't you
see,
be satisfied?
that is why I brought in Sputnik V, Godfred.
Well,
Godfred.
Are you talking about
Dr.
Sputnik
Asiasa,
V?
also let's be fair here. If you look at the way the accounting has been done, so it says budget, then there's release or utilization, then there's variance, which is what is left. So for instance, if you go to health response, supplies, equipment, it says 50% of basic salary. It talks about 2020 budget 80. Release utilization is at 39, so that's 39 million perhaps spent. So there's 41 million left. But if you get to this, and it's the same for every line item. But on the provision of health infrastructure, 2020 budget is 600. release utilization is 600.
600. So it
and
tells
the variance
you that
is zero.
The variance is zero. It tells you that there's nothing available.
It has been released to GIF.
That is the explanation.
It's been released to GIF. So what is the problem about
you.
it?
It's okay.
Have you gone to GIF to ask GIF if
Thank
GIF has utilized the money?
Look, can I proceed?
That's what I said.
I like what he has said.
It has been
that
released.
that is the ministry's explanation now. But if you are looking at this document, Godfrey, this document tells you.
So you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. This document tells you that the money has been spent. But the ministry has explained that the money has not been spent, but it has been taken to GIF. Godfrey, and that is why I brought in Sputnik V. During Sputnik V interrogation, we're told that the what do you call it? The Arabian Sheikh Maktoum had not been paid any money. It took more inquiry for us to determine
that he had been paid.
So why should I take the Ministry of Finance word that this captured utilization as reported to Parliament and the people of Ghana means that the money is in the accounts? That is why, as minority group, we are calling for an independent audit of the processes leading to the utilization or transfer of this 600 million to that account. Let us look, it could be done today. Perhaps as we are speaking today, the finance ministry is now looking for some 600 million somewhere to do that transfer.
All right, thank you.
So that let us not take it on the face value because they say that we have transferred it, but you have reported it as being spent.
Thank you. Honorable Lassa, so you remember Parle for Tamale? No, I give you 20 minutes, which is much more than I've given everybody. Dr. Tessan, I'll come to you. I have two questions. It doesn't
feel like 20 minutes, though.
It's a lot.
Because I still had a lot to say.
20 minutes. Yeah. Right. No, Dr. Tessan, I'll come back to you. Right, Nyako.
Yeah.
I'm hoping your internet is okay now. I'm sure you've been following the conversation, so you can make your inputs in between. Go on.
Yes. So I think listening into the conversation, I still want to draw our discussion to the 111 and the way forward. So for us, our concern has always been that it's a good project for us. We need it as a country. But we want to follow through to understand how it will be financed to its fruitful conclusion. And this, from our thoughts and discussions, we've realized that government is only showing allocations from the budget. So we want to see the commitment thereof from the contractors. Now, in other discussions that we've had, they are now saying contractors would also mobilize their own funding and so on and forth. What agreements do we have with the contractors? And then how are they going to mobilize this funding? And then when the projects are ongoing, are they willing to release them in the 18 months after completion, even when government has not fully paid them? These are concerns that we are raising, that in other projects, we have seen that the contractors are able to fund it, complete it, and they are not functional. We don't want this project to also be one of them that will be completed and are sitting in the bush. So government should come clear on how other funding could be raised to get these projects completed. That will satisfy us as civil society because we are the first beneficiary to this project. And for that matter, we have to follow it through to really get to its conclusion on financial issues. And that would honestly satisfy us, and that is what we are looking up to.
All right, then, thank you. Let me come to Dr. Anthony Sasa and to two issues that were raised by Farhan and Bright Nyako. Now, that comes to the matter of seed funding. He spoke about Buipe, for instance. I recall the WA one as well. Building and completing is one issue. Finding money to get the hospital started is another. Yes. And most of the time, that is what keeps the buildings closed. I recall having Dr. Becca Nkrumah, health economist, and he says that seems to be the biggest problem, finding the seed money. What is the model that these hospitals will even run to make them viable? Is that something that has been considered? And the second question I have for you is on the matter of personnel. We have a lot of nurses, but we don't have a lot of doctors. Now, if you are putting in this level of investment in infrastructure, is there a parallel investment in making sure that we have the specialized staff also trained at the same time to work in these facilities?
Yeah, thank you very much. Godfred, maybe I have to take my...
You answer my questions first, then you go to Suhim.
I'll go to him later on. Yes, seed money to start hospitals.
Yes.
You know, I've been running hospitals for
A very long time.
a long time, from district, region, and then teaching hospital. So I know about that one. If the hospital is not a hospital which is already existing, and you build maybe another department, even in Komfo-Anokye, when you build the Accident Emergency Center, it was very difficult to start running it. So this is a conversation that we've taken it up seriously, so that all the hospitals will have some seed money to start with, at least for about the first 6 months. That one is being considered and to be done seriously. The personnel, it is not very true that we don't have enough doctors in the country.
We do?
I'm coming. Now we are training a lot of doctors in this country. We are doing the housemanship training. There are a lot of doctors also coming from outside Ghana. Sometimes during the housemanship training, we have as much as more than 500 people who have come in. The problem we have, especially with doctors who have come in to do training and also for residency training, is where to train them. You know, residency training is done, you should have the equipment, well-equipped hospitals, and then you should have also the personnel, the seniors who will be teaching them. There's another issue which maybe we have to also take care of is even the retiring age of doctors, especially the specialists and the consultants. We may have to go what other countries are doing in Europe and America, where maybe push the retiring age to about 65 or 70. Because like the older it is, the better. Nurses, as you are already aware that there's a lot of nurses also, sometimes they have to stay at home for about a year or two before they are taken. So we've taken all these things into consideration. And we want to make sure that all these hospitals will also be used for housemanship training and also for residency training. Once you decentralize it, you have doctors all over the place. But you can move doctors to these areas, especially the hard-to-reach areas and then the deprived areas, when you have some incentives. I always say that I don't believe that a doctor who is working in Accra, who has time to move around and all this, and should be collecting the same salary of a doctor who is in my village, who doesn't have any other thing. He's there because he has a love for the job. So if you do all these things and do it properly, so we are sitting down with all those who are concerned with medical training, with a regulation like Medical and Dental Council, and with the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons and the Ghana Medical Association, who is a stakeholder. And we'll come out with a comprehensive plan, even earlier enough before these projects which have started also take off. And the nurses, we have also a plan for them. We were discussing yesterday, why don't you even get those who manage these hospitals also selected and trained, and so that before they move into the hospital, because the hospital management is also a very important thing that we have to do. So we are taking all this into consideration. That's why a lot of us are there to be working together with whoever is doing it. And then
I guess you can appreciate the concerns that people have, because you mentioned that you are now meeting all these agencies to try and put things together. You didn't add the finance ministry because this will add to their budget.
The finance ministry will be part of it.
Yes, and this is a significant addition.
It's a significant addition. I agree. I agree.
A wage bill that they already complain about.
Yes, you see, it is true. But you see, either we like it or not, if you want good health, I always say that health is wealth. You put your money where your mouth is. So if you create an atmosphere where you have healthy population, then everything that you have put together will work. That's why I'm very much concerned about, and I'm very much in support of this Agenda 111. Because now we are seeing health. And somebody was saying that they don't see the money, where is it coming from, and all these things. If for once, the Minister of Finance is trying to say that, look, let's use our own resources to put up this 103 hospitals, that's 101 plus 2 psychiatric hospitals, I'm all for it. And I believe that my nephew here will also support it any way that he wants to support it.
Yes.
And then we make it happen. Because there are some people who, what we are saying here and saying that, oh, this thing is doing this, they don't care about it. They want the hospitals near them. They want health facilities near them, quality care near them. So, Godfrey, as you said, it is very important that seed money for running of these hospitals, and for that matter, any other hospital which is built, should be well secured, and so that if it is even 100,000 Ghana cedis or even 50,000 Ghana cedis, a person knows that I need to do this. Every hospital needs at least some utility vehicle which will be moving around to bring things when they need it. Every hospital needs to buy medicines and buy some consumables. Later on, when health insurance is reimbursing them, then you can even buy it on credit. But if you are beginning, how do you begin? So it is very much taken care of. And the personnel, we are setting the personnel in place. The work is not being done that is the only construction. I don't believe it's only the structure which is important. What goes into the structure, the equipment, who are the people who will use the equipment, very important. And also how we maintain the equipment so that we have a very good long lifetime of the equipment. So maintenance, very, very important, including planned preventive maintenance. So these are some of the things that is going into the thinking. And I'm happy that, you see, he said that, President has cut this, and he said that he will do it last year and all these things. We have to sit down, make sure that things go into whatever we are going to do. So my brothers who are on the CSO should also know that it didn't come out just out of the blue. It has gone through a lot of thinking, a lot of things have gone into place, a lot of processes have gone into place, and the building that we have built it has been constructed. I think the architect displayed it when the commencement was done in Trede. It is culture. You have to look at the culture. They look at the demography. They look at the temperatures and all these things. How do you conserve water? How do you use solar energy and all these things? So a lot of planning and thinking has gone into it before we came out. But quickly, so I think I've answered your question.
No, but I have more. Before you want to get to the political side of it.
No, I will do that one. I will do that one before.
But all along he's been doing politics. I'm not doing politics. Saying the political side of it.
I'm explaining a lot of things. You have got in politics. That's why I want to go there.
I am staying with the
let's stay with the listen. I think that's better.
What else has he been doing about politics?
For instance,
I'm not doing politics.
We saw the staffing difficulties for even a place like UGMC.
It's interesting.
Yes.
The significant staffing difficulties.
Yes.
And in the end, it took significant effort to be able to find the staff to get it up and running. Here we are. You are putting up all these hospitals, plus the regional hospitals, plus the psychiatric hospitals, plus all these other projects. You must understand the difficulty then for people who say, who's going to work in these places? Yes, the nurses are there, but where are the doctors? Where are they coming from?
You see, there's a difference between putting workers at UGMC and putting workers at, for example, a regional hospital and a district hospital. They are different. UGMC is supposed to be a specialized hospital. So when you want to let UGMC work as it's supposed to be, you need specialists. And you don't train specialists in 6 years. But we train medical officers in 6 years. They do their national housemanship for 2 years, and they are ready to work.
Okay.
I think that the first 1 year housemanship can be done maybe in a specialist hospital. Second year of housemanship can be done at a place where we have senior officers who can maintain, control them, and also teach them, and then make sure that they do the right things. It's even good for the training, because the work that you do as doctors and nurses is both apprenticeship and also through, reading and learning and all this and following people. So you do a kind of apprenticeship to gain the experience. And every young doctor wants to gain the experience that he's supposed to get. If doctors have get a place where they can work, there's equipment there, there's accommodation, very important. And then somebody can then guide them. Most doctors will be happy to move out of this specialist hospital to go to a district hospital. And this is why I say that we can have enough of them, with enough of a few people who will be trying to guide them through their training. And it's all an issue of equity and equitable distribution of our scarce health resources. If you do it properly, and then we make sure that where the person is going, it doesn't go there and say there's no place for you to stay. He knows. When I was in Tamale, when I went to Tamale first, there were 27 doctors. Before I left Tamale, we were about No, when I went to Tamale Fair, there were 14 doctors there, including myself. Before I left, there were about 30 doctors there. If you come with your things and say you have been posted to Tamale, we make sure that you get accommodation for you there and there. Sometimes we put them in hotels and then go to the Metropolitan Assembly and then deal with them. I was staying, for example, at Norib Village. We have to take some houses in Norib Village which were not used and refurbish them for doctors to go and stay in. So that's how we are going to do it. And that's the reason why accommodation is part of this project.
Okay, all right then. Let me see, hold on. Farhan, are you with me?
Yes.
Yes, Farhan, I will give you your final take on all that you've heard so far. Has Dr. Nsia-Asare convinced you and your group of the project?
Well, it's not about being convinced by Dr. Nsia-Asare. Let me say that we have always bought into the idea of expanding health infrastructure because we know it's going to make health accessible and available to everybody. So we understand that perfectly. Our issue about the costing, we will still... Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Farhan, go on.
I would say that we are cautiously optimistic, considering, our history and how programs have been managed in the past. Even when you take UGMC, for instance, just yesterday, we had a stakeholder engagement. And one of the senior staff was just saying that you see the infrastructure there, very, very beautiful, but when you enter there, they don't have, consumables to run effectively. So it's a big issue. That also comes to talk about providing the seed funding. We need to start thinking about where we can get seed funding for these facilities. But we have a major challenge. And the challenge is that somewhere around 2017, 2018, the same government, through the finance minister, introduced IGF retention policy for the Ministry of Finance. So they cut about 20% to 25% IGF funding, which means that instead of retaining these funds at the health facilities, it's being taken away. So we need to ensure that perhaps we have these funds coming back to the health system so that we can run effectively. But looking at the projections that have been made so far, we will need at least about 1.5 billion before we can complete these hospitals. We need to start thinking of where we can get the funding from. Other than that, we can just do about 30 facilities or 30 hospitals based on the current financial projections. Maintenance culture, we need to consider privatizing maintenance of these new hospitals that will be coming up. And then training needs, in fact, quality of care. For instance, when you take the Joint Monitoring Program, which is being commissioned by the WHO and then the UNICEF, they did a project which showed that 40% of our facilities are not able to provide quality of care to clients that come to access healthcare, which means that, and they went further to say that more mortalities were recorded, or you have more odds of dying if you were to access healthcare services compared with not accessing healthcare services at all. So we need to consider the training needs because some of the doctors and nurse specialists and general nurses and midwives that we have do not have the capacity to operate some of the equipment that are being installed. So we have to train them adequately and ensure that there is continuous professional development and continuous job coaching so that they can man these facilities effectively. Now, we also have issues of delay in reimbursement of the facilities. Now, you commission a hospital, you may be able to provide some seed funding. Now, they get accreditation from the National Health Insurance Authority to run services free for the people. But the Health Insurance Authority or the scheme is not able to reimburse the facilities early enough. There's delay in reimbursement, and then productivity is hindered on. So we need to look at that and accommodation for the senior management of these facilities. For instance, if we take the Bupe own, for instance, I think we just have about 3 accommodation units. If you go to Bamboy, just 2. How can it accommodate senior management staff? So, for instance, if you have the Metsu, and you have the administrator, matron, or whatever, everybody else, management staff, they don't have accommodation. We need to begin looking at all these things so that the facilities can run effectively. So you cannot also commission a hospital and just leave it with only one doctor to operate. We need to recruit more doctors. So he's saying that we have more doctors. I beg to differ. We do not have them. They are not inadequacy. And now the system has been liberalized. I mean, I'm not against that, but most of them are going into private practice and they don't want to come into public service. So we need to find ways of ensuring they are into private practice, but they can at least augment the public sector with their services.
All right, thank you very much, Ahmed Farhan, Executive Director, Africa Center for Health Policy. Honorable Suhuyini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, your final round on this, and then we can close the chapter on this the second part of the show.
My final round will be on the need for us all to support whatever project and program that will lead to ensuring that we improve health care in this country. And we can do that not only by putting up the structures. I mean, in the past, we've had these discussions. In the past, when President
put up a lot of structures, so
I'm getting there. Why don't you? Why are you not patient with me? I said that we have had this discussion. So that's what I'm telling you. We've had this discussion that, look, it is not only about putting up the infrastructure. We've had that discussion because in the past, the previous government, that President Mahama and the NDC, ensured that a lot of these projects were done across the country. In fact, when this government came into power and abandoned some of these projects and they were criticized, their first reaction those times, suggested that some of those projects were misplaced. And that, for example, when you spoke of the University of Ghana Medical Center, the 37 military hospital, then the Bank of Ghana Hospital. I recall the debates at the time. People thought that they were misplaced. I mean, they were too close and we didn't need all these, projects. Some people suggested and questioned the cost. So when we are having this discussion, it is important that we don't miss the fact that we still have a deficit when it comes to health infrastructure. But the focus should not be just the infrastructure, because that alone will not necessarily lead to improved health care. But I'm saying that this government, with this so far, simply seem to be engaging in the usual rhetoric, and it is not something that is really focused at addressing the infrastructure deficit that we are faced with. Because you see, if they were focused on addressing the health deficit we are faced with, the abandoned hospitals that you generously provided, for which attempts have been made to explain away, would have been completed first. I mean, how do you explain a situation where one government takes 1 year to start a project and within 1 year take it to 80% completion, hand it over to you, and it takes you more than 5 years to complete, and you say it is not abandoned, it is ongoing? Femina is a classical example. Femina is a classical example. Within 1 year, it was handed over at about 80% complete.
That was your interpretation of it.
Well, no, that was the record.
When you cleared all the money to go and do research,
that is where I have a problem. When I speak and make reference to the documents, you don't call it my interpretation. I'm saying that was a record available at the time.
Record like
you see,
that.
when he speaks, his interpretation does not necessarily hold. You understand?
But I want everybody to order based on the information that I have.
Yes, just as you will doubt what I will say, I expect that the same will be done until you are given with the documents.
When it comes to the matter of the hospitals, there are very few media houses that have done work on the hospitals that we have.
But what I'm saying
so when
is
I call you out on it, please.
But I'm saying that the record as handed over to them was that 80% had been, and he said it here. He said it in his. He admitted that 80%, about 80% had been done, and 20. In fact, we even said 15%, and that you now have to use the resources from other hospitals. He said it, that because it was close to completion, they use other resources to do it. So I'm saying that if the agenda is really focused on fixing the health infrastructure deficit that we have, the focus will rather be on completing these abandoned projects and putting them to use, and also even completing those that they themselves have cut short for. In fact, on this set, I have just made reference to about 4 sorts that have been cut.
Yes.
And project sites abandoned. Shama, it may be far away, but like General Hospital is just around the corner. And I'm saying that if the focus is not the usual propaganda and rhetoric, you will be asking yourself why they are not focusing on those that they have they have committed themselves to in the past to fixing, like the General Hospital, like Shama, like Nkranza. Then we can talk about whether we need 88 or we need 111 and how we are going to fund all of that. But it's the usual rhetoric, just to propagandize and take
messages. Let me take messages and then we can wrap this up. Let us take a couple of messages.
But this one says what it is.
Prince Henry says no one is against the president putting up 101 hospitals. But the questions Ghanaians asking is how committed is the government to seeing that this will be done till the end. Page 119 of the NPP's 2016 manifesto promised to put up 88 district hospitals. So the idea of putting up 88 hospitals which has now become 111 is not a new idea. Let's not forget that the president also promised to build 350 senior high schools in his first 18 months to help improve infrastructure and education, but that has still not materialized. Musa Abattoir basically is not also buying it. He says it's Agenda 419, and my justification for this is that we've seen this before. They cannot see it through. Then we have Xylix Dwayne in London says we are tired of the government and all its promises. It's egregious. This one also says, I don't understand why parliamentarians always approve these decisions by the president and later come and criticize it. This one says, why do we have to spend money on new hospitals when we can't even complete pending projects? What is going on with the Euro projects, the Labadi Hospital, the La General Hospital? Have you said the Shao Sudoku Hospital before? Why did the government stop the projects at different places? As for technocrats who have says our leaders are never concerned about the citizens and will just do anything that they wish and desire. AU Farouk Tamale says he is also not buying it. It's going to be a mirage. Agenda 111 is really something special, says Babamu from Tamale Central. We hope that the president is able to achieve this. So quite a lot of messages, but expressing mixed sentiment on this particular topic. So I will wrap up this part of the conversation with a big thank you to Dr. Anthony Siasai for making time for us this morning. He has a very busy schedule, but he decided to show up. We have.
You started it. You did yours.
You see, right
politics is going to
chairman of the coalition of NGOs in help. But we will catch up later on the state of the La General Hospital.
Yeah, we will come back on.
We'll come back on that because
the minister was in Parliament.
We will catch up with the La General Hospital. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk corruption.
I want to clean, and clean. I just use my Yopo to wipe it all clean. No matter how strong that all win. Everything is bright when Yopo is in. Yopo, every kind of Yopo, Yopo, and you better Yopo, every kind of Yopo.
No matter the debt problem, Yopo has got you and your family covered.
This advertisement is FDA approved.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Madame. Et voilà.
Babe, what is this?
This is the escargot. The foie gras. Oui.
Where did she go?
You pa one casa who say obase your pay fiedian.
It's been long since you ever felt like this.
Welcome to the best in Ghanaian entertainment on Aquaba Magic. Efie Nifi. Welcome home to Aquaba Magic on DSTV channel 150. It's your moment. DSTV.
Welcome back to the big issue. We're inside the second stage of the conversation. This time we are discussing corruption. And the president seems quite satisfied with himself and his government on how well they are doing with corruption. In fact, he's been meeting a coalition of, this week he met a coalition of CSOs and anti-corruption and expressed as much that his government has done well. Even brought in the previous Auditor General and said the acting Auditor General seems to be doing a good job. That is Johnson Ekwanwa Esiedu, and he intends to confirm him as the substantive Auditor General very soon. That has also drawn a bit of ire from the public in all that. But it's also a bigger conversation. It's not even just about what the president says, but a general conversation about corruption. This is also the week where we've seen the Auditor General's report. And if you're supposed to do the mathematics, we are looking at irregularities increasing by 135% across. We have MMDAs doing their thing. We have GMPC mentioned. We had SNIT mentioned. In fact, some of these state agencies have had cause to respond to the Auditor General's report and their, to explain their positions on the matters that they were cited for in the said report. But what it does paint is a picture that corruption is perhaps not as far away as one thinks, and it's not just a matter of what the president thinks about the state of corruption. It's just a larger fight that everybody needs to get involved in. So the president, will hear from him. Samira Afe, presidential correspondent, monitored that meeting between the president and the coalition of CSOs, and then we'll come back in and I'll take comments. Franklin Kujo will join us as well. Erica Mwakwam, who's a communications member of the New Patriotic Party, and other things. We'll get into the other things later on.
At a meeting with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition at the Jubilee House, Nana Akufo-Addo says his government acted within the law when he asked the former Auditor General, Daniel Yao Domlevo, to proceed on his accumulated leave. Government came under intense public pressure from civil society organizations who say the fight against corruption will be affected with Mr. Domlevo's exit. But Nana Akufo-Addo says the new Auditor General has proven to be a good replacement.
I think we're all aware of the circumstances in which the first Auditor, when I say the first Auditor General in my time left office. It seemed to presage some disputation between him and my government, between him and myself, and somebody had to act in his place. I felt that it was important that that person should be given sufficient time to develop the confidence of the population, rather than to rush to an appointment which could also have given the impression that that is the reason why we acted against the first Auditor General, to remove him from office and plant somebody perhaps more pliant or more accessible. I believe the one who succeeded him, who came to succeed him by natural order in the hierarchy there, has not demonstrated sufficient quality, independence of view. For instance, he's responsible for something that is unheard of in our history, the 12 statutory reports that have to be compiled and placed before Parliament in the year of Parliament. This is the first time it has ever been done.
Chairman of the coalition, Nana Osei-Bonsu, says government must do all it can to address issues of corruption in Ghana.
As demonstrated by the 2019 Afrobarometer Corruption Survey, Public approval ratings of government's efforts at fighting corruption have waned. Therefore, Mr. President, you and your appointees must prioritize measures that will contribute to a restoration of public confidence in the commitment and dedication of you and your team's effort to fight corruption. One way to demonstrate this is to lead by example and refrain from profligacy of while applying sanctions to appointees who fall foul of the law and codes of conduct.
So, just snippets from the president's meeting, and again he highlighted the work, the release of the reports by Johnson Ekwame. You know, we've been going through that reporting. There was one interesting one that caught my eye, my colleague Nathan Kwa reviewed, about a project, an abattoir project that had been built without water and electricity and had now been handed over to a prophetess to use. And this is something that was constructed with state funds, you know, which I found quite ridiculous. But let me begin this conversation from Franklin Cudjoe, and then I will come in studio to Suhini and then Eric. Franklin, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. Today you decided to stay at home.
Oh, yes. Next week you see me, because I realized you had forgotten entirely about me.
But what did you make of the president's meeting with the CSOs in anti-corruption and some of the things that he said regarding your good friend Dom Levo and where he feels we are in the fight against corruption, in fact, how his government is performing when it comes to corruption?
Well, first of all, these meetings are supposed to be very useful because somehow they provide some sort of a check for the president and his men or his women as to how things are unfolding in the larger scheme of things, really. And so my first reaction was that the meeting, even though it was not the presidency that called for the meeting, it was a good avenue to basically have a conversation about some of the theming or some of the nagging issues, leading issues in the course of the administration of this government. So it was not a bad idea to meet at all. I think that the president had an opportunity, and you can't fault him, had an opportunity to use the meeting to his advantage to tell us exactly what he's done. I suspect that is also in order. He's a politician, so definitely you use every occasion to propagate his deeds. I think on the substantive matter of whether the Auditor General has done a yeoman's job, probably better than the previous occupants of the office, that obviously, I'm not too sure the jury out there would necessarily confirm what he's saying. I mean, these are largely, should I say, they are routine pieces of work. Dom Levo was going for the juggle. I mean, he was going for big fishes, basically. And that's where his troubles began, really. I don't think Mr. Ekwame has done anything of the sort. He's just done routine work. And I think most of the publications or the reports themselves were under the previous Auditor General, but these are lack reports anyway. So I do not necessarily agree with the president that on that score, Mr. Johnson Esiedu or
Johnson Ekwame Esiedu.
Oh, okay. So there's an Esiedu there.
Yes.
I'm not too sure if that comparison is particularly right. Of course, if the president wants to confirm him, well, he may go ahead to do so, and he has every right to do so anyway. I'm not entirely sure the comparison is right, and I'll leave it there. But let me just say that, you see, the only reasons why issues of public sector corruption keeps coming up is essentially because governments have become, day in, day out, we see governments being at the commanding height of the economy. Look at the discussion we just had on the hospitals. I mean, in all the conversation, you are never hearing the opportunity or the possibility of having a joint sort of partnership with the private sector in ensuring that these facilities are properly maintained or properly handled. And so you have the cyclical problems where because the government wills it, then somehow things will be done anyway. And unfortunately, because these are big money ticket investments, and governments are very happy at executing basically what I call, well, I'll not say that they are propaganda projects, but they are useful projects. But governments are typically better at propagating the things they do. You end up finding out that at the end of the day, clearly we never had value for money. So the question about corruption, and it's indeed, even the Auditor General's report clearly shows how persistently public sector institutions have become renegade and reneged on their obligations or their fiduciary responsibilities in ensuring that they protect the public purse. So it's a much larger conversation than just ticking boxes and saying, I've done this, I've given money to anti-corruption institutions, and so I've done well. Or somebody has presented 12 statutory reports in record time, and so because of that, the administration should be patted on the back. I think the issue really is what happens afterwards. And it's not necessarily the punishment, but whether these things would continue or would not continue. So it was a good meeting, I think. But I think that, as I said, the president needed to use that opportunity to clarify that he's the best, he's fought corruption better than his predecessors. I'm not too sure the public is on the side, but hey, he's a politician, and the GSCC gave him an opportunity to state what he's done. And yeah.
Well, I found it quite interesting. The president went quite hard on a few points. I'm not sure if you followed everything he said. You've been in the CSO game for a while. He made a point about the CSOs and some of the allegations you make, and the motives behind some of the allegations you make, where he says, look, there's a very partisan nature about what some of you do, and some of you are even complicit in some of the things, but you then end up accusing him of some of these things that perhaps are not actually true. So some of the accusations are not actually even born out of merit, just partisanship. I found that intriguing and quite also a serious statement coming from the president.
It was good some of us were not at the meet, because I think that would have put him right on the spot. And then make the comment that, look, nobody is deflecting criticisms away from CSOs at all. I don't think that's what CSOs are saying or they've been about. I think the reasons why you hear, for lack of a better word, a lot of high-octane noise about procurement-related matters is essentially because you never get an opportunity to know what the details really are until something pops up. Really? Right? So clearly speaking, civil society actors will typically sound the alarm bells. I mean, the duty of government, therefore, having reneged on its initial obligation to provide adequate information, would have been, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about this matter, and let's iron out what the differences are. But typically what follows is either insult, opprobrium, and basically just going after people's personalities, really. And I don't think it's just with the NPP. I mean, it's across the political line. So for me, that comment about CSOs being in political clothing or masking themselves as politicians or unmasked politicians, for me, is another here nor there. I mean, we've heard this ad infinitum. It's not the first time we are hearing it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to give specifics. Otherwise, the specifics would have been, for instance, doesn't the president support AFAC? Is AFAC not the CSO politically, set up to advance the opportunities or the benefits of the NPP? Doesn't the president support Let My Vote Count, which was set up by the NPP to advance its interest? Doesn't the president support the Danko Institute, which was founded by my good friend Gabi? which is a politically aligned, should I say, CSO. I don't know when Imani became an NDC or MPP appendage. Of course, politicians have said so many things anyway. And so the point to be made is that, yes, there are politically aligned CSOs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've just mentioned a few of them. In the NDC, you find a number of them as well, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I suspect the problem has to do with the substance of whatever is being discussed. That's why I'm saying that I don't think the president made that comment necessarily to denigrate CSOs in general. Otherwise, some of the other comments were obviously political, and he has every right to say what he believes, his criticisms of CSOs. But I do not think that you just name all the very high-profile issues that have occurred in the last 6 or 7 years in this country and ask whether there were no genuine reasons for them, right? I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's just so many of them, and we never got to the conclusions. I don't think it was the fault of the CSOs for Sputnik to happen. Was it the fault of the CSOs for Japan to happen? Was it the fault of the CSOs for, I've forgotten most of them. But at the end of the day, it is the fact that the politician typically doesn't provide enough information. Look at how you are scrabbling all over to find information about Agenda 111, which is something I tacitly support, by the way. But the question I asked myself, and I think I'm struggling to answer that question, what is the financial plan that is there, that exists? You don't know. Eventually, we may be told that because we needed to do things quickly, we have to procure certain services immediately. And then as a result of that, we get ourselves into all sorts of troubles. There's the larger issues about the debt iceberg that is before us. Now that we are saying we'll finance these hospitals by ourselves, but we do not know beyond a year or two how they'll be done. Does it mean, and my good friend Nsiasari was saying that external parties could also be consulted. Well, does it mean that, the government will resort to external borrowing without having probably justified the reasons why existing hospitals have not been upgraded, and whether the hospitals so built would be managed prudently so that we do not have this endless cycle of using public money to build things that do not last. So I guess the conversation is not really about catching the politicians stealing money or doing ABCD. The biggest corruption issues in this country are procurement related. And almost all the big procurement gigs are actually cooked from the presidency. That's why some of us at Imani, we've maintained that if you want to fight corruption and waste in Ghana, start from the presidency, start from the Office of Government Machinery. But that's where all the big ticket projects are padded, are actually cooked. I'm not using cook in a negative manner. But look at this whole thing. One district, one factory. 1 million, one constituency. Or one village, one dam. You trace all of them to, even if they are ministries, they are headquartered or they are actually reporting to the Office of Government Machinery. So there's a bigger conversation about public waste and, should I say, profligacy, that goes beyond just saying you catch somebody stealing money or saying things without any merit. It has to do with the way the systems have been organized.
All right, thank you very much, Franklin. And let me come to you, Suhuyini. The president's point is well made, but I want us to look at this in a far more general context with regards to the release of the Auditor General's report. And for me, what caught my eye was basically we lost 12 billion cedis. 12 billion Ghana cedis through irregularities by state institutions. And some of the situations were just comical. Like I said, this one where you build an abattoir that has no electricity and no water, when we know that these are the two most essential things for an abattoir. So why is it an abattoir? And then you end up giving it up for rent to a church as well, and the whole litany of these issues. And basically, we're not making much headway in this corruption fight, are we?
Was the church so sourced?
That's something we can confirm.
Right. Well, Godfred, the president says we are. And he's such a lucky man that I sometimes envy him. Yes, I do. Because he's held responsible for nothing in this country. And it's just amazing how he's able to do that. So he says that we are doing well. It doesn't matter what you and I know. It doesn't matter what we experience. He says what he believes. And he's tolerated. He's allowed to hold that view, and it becomes even offensive when you question that view to some people. They get offended when you question that view. And I just, that's why I say that I envy him. Look, I'll use one example, Godfred. A recent example. Sputnik V. I saw Occupy Ghana issue a statement. And a part of that statement criticized Parliament. When indeed Parliament played an oversight role. That is what we are supposed to do. By instituting an ad hoc committee and using that ad hoc committee to unearth. It was a fact-finding committee. Fact-finding. So we unearthed the facts. Guess what? We played our oversight role. Did a fact-finding committee, unearthed the facts that certain infractions took place. The one who appoints the minister doesn't get blamed. He actually moves forward to defend the minister for those actions. He doesn't get blamed. But Occupy Ghana finds it convenient to think that Parliament could have done better. But you see, the man who has the authority to appoint and disappoint actually goes ahead to defend the man and gets.
But on that matter, I'm not absolving Parliament that easily, the way you are.
I am not.
I've read the report. Your sentiments were not in there.
Godfred.
If you feel so heavily about it, they were not in the report.
Godfred, fact finding. All the facts showed that the minister had engaged in infraction.
You had no input in the conclusions?
You see, what I'm saying is that Parliament can move for a censure.
It wasn't even in your report.
But it was actually moved on the floor.
No, but it wasn't
but
in
I'm
the
saying
report.
That even if you want to hold Parliament responsible, you see, if you agree. If you agree.
I will do so.
Godfrey, if you agree.
I will not let you off on that.
No, I agree. I'm saying that if you agree that Parliament had a role to play.
Yes.
But you also know, you shouldn't deny the fact that Parliament role can be impeded because we have a bipartisan Parliament.
Certainly.
But you know the President has unlimited power on this matter.
Yeah.
So why will your focus be on Parliament if you want some action taken?
No, I was just putting that on record.
So that's why I say I envy the President. Because in this case, the focus is rather, let's hold Parliament responsible. Because they didn't calculate. But the man who has the ultimate power to have resolved that problem, we are shy of getting to. That didn't happen in the past, though. I just have to put that on record. But you see, he says that we are doing well, even if 12 billion is lost per the reports of the Auditor General. Even if 135% increase has been recorded as irregularities.
Yeah.
He says we are doing well. Even if he doesn't tell us the truth about the number of reports that have been filed by his favorite Auditor General, after he hounded out the predecessor, even if he doesn't tell us the truth, because you see, it is not correct that anything unprecedented has been done under his favorite Auditor General, who has succeeded the one he handed out of office. Nothing unprecedented has happened. In fact, the same reports that have been, published in the past are those that have been published now. We had, in 2017, when Domolevo was there, about 11 were published, came down to 9, to 7, and now about 8. But we also have performance audit reports that they publish. They have all done that. This one has also done some. Domolevo did some. There's nothing special or spectacular that has happened. But the President says something spectacular has happened. And he gets away with it. But the records, you can go to the Audit Service website and check the reports that have been filed and published. And nothing dramatic has happened. But the President says that. But he's always gotten away with it. He came into office after promising us that he was going to use the ANAS principle to fight corruption in this country. We all have seen what has happened to the ANAS principle. In fact, leading members of his government have gone on a campaign, have waged a campaign against ANAS. And when you sometimes think that he doesn't support it, when you hear comments like those that he made at the Flagstaff House when he met the CSOs, then you know that it's actually things that are discussed, behind the scenes. In fact, there is actually a video of Kennedy Agyapong claiming that his whole campaign against ANAS was supported by the president himself. It's online. The president has since not denied it. Nobody even dares ask the president to deny it like it used to happen in the past. As for this man, no one touches him. I envy him. Media allegations, he told us he will investigate. He has come against the media, criticized them for raising very objective issues. But in opposition, he said there was the need for investigations to be carried out when media raises issues. In fact, he has gone forward to supervise at least the closure of media that is considered critical. Some of them that is considered critical.
He did?
Yes, he did. He supervised it. Every minister works, to the president. Yeah, he did. So he has gone ahead to actually even supervise the closure of critical media in this country. Even though he told us before he became president that he was going to ensure that, investigations were carried out when allegations were leveled against appointees in his government. In fact, he didn't even stop there, because that was already happening under the previous government. In fact, investigations were carried out. Almost all the scandals that you can mention, under President Mahama and the NDC were as a result of media allegations that the government instituted investigations into. It listened and did investigations, made findings, and sometimes carried out prosecutions, and in some cases made retrievals. The president said that wasn't enough then when he was in opposition, that retrieving monies were not enough. But again, we saw what happened with Sputnik V. They say, the money has come, let's forget about everything. And he defends it. He said, the man has suffered. That's President Akufo-Addo for you. I mean, Martin Amidu caps it all when he tells us that he is the mother serpent of corruption.
But Martin Amidu was a beneficiary of one of his solutions to corruption, the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Yes, Martin Amidu says that his biggest regret is believing that the president meant well when he gave him that job.
Well, those were his personal sentiments.
Well, that is, but who am I to doubt Martin Amidu, especially when he was hailed and he is considered the best friend of the president, and they were so close, they worked so closely together. Who am I? Is it for me to doubt Martin Amidu? He said that. In fact, when Martin Amidu said things about Professor Mills and the NDC, he didn't doubt it. The NPP people didn't doubt it. So don't ask me to doubt it when he has gotten so close to them and he's saying things about them. He says he's the mother serpent of corruption. And he's gotten so close. And for him to arrive at that conclusion, it may be based on a comparison he has done, because he was with the NDC and thought the NDC was corrupt. So he fought the NDC and got close and became a friend to the MPP. Nana Addo, made him a friend, made him special prosecutor. And now, based on tasting water and wine, he now tells us which one can get you intoxicated. So he says, Nana Addo is actually the mother serpent of corruption. And who am I? But you see, the president says what he wants to believe, and he listens to what excites him. So I'm not surprised that despite all that we know and all that has been happening in this country, he will meet the CSOs and tell us that we are doing well, even though the records internationally, don't support that.
Okay.
Look, he was. Yeah, I'm just wrapping up. Let me wrap up on that note. On CNN in 2020, he was once again exposed when he claimed that since he became president, our ratings under Transparency International has improved. Let me just share with you. In fact, Fact Finders caught that lie. 2013, Ghana was 63rd out of 180 countries. 2014, we're 61st out of 180 countries. 2015, we're 56th out of 180 countries. We did so well in 2015. 2016, we slipped to 70 out of 180 countries. 2017, we came to 81 out of 180 countries. 2018, we did better. We came to 78, but that was not even equal to the worst performance of 2016, because 2016 we were 70 out of 180. Then we went to 81. Then we came to 78 in 2018. Then in 2019 we're 80th out of 180 countries. 2020, 75th out of 180 countries. That cannot be a better record. In fact, the best performance of his administration cannot even be equated to the worst performance of his predecessor.
Okay, point well made. Eric, Suhuyini does not agree that corruption is going well, based on what we have seen from the Auditor General's report, from other issues that have emerged.
In fact, if you would allow me to tell you about the report also on the construction of what you call warehouses, it will pay into significance. Yes,
you can come back.
Yes, it will compare to the one that you were talking about, Abattoir.
Eric, are we doing well?
Warehouses,
and but I don't mean just the government. I mean the entire state. Are we doing well?
Well, good morning to yourself. Good morning to.
Good morning.
I haven't seen you for a while. To be honest with you, I think that in the last couple of days, I mean, when the Auditor General's report started coming out, a lot of conversations have been had. I've followed it, plus the encounter between the president and the CSOs, and I don't see anything, I mean, wrong with the assertions of the president in saying that we're doing well, especially even when you want to look at it from a very basic standpoint, which is the amount of investment that has gone into the various agencies that are supposed to support in the fight against corruption. And then you look at even the commitment to setting up the Special Prosecutor's Office. You can have all your disagreements and even reservations about the essence or the reason why it was important for us to do so, especially when we all agree that over the period we've been running this system where year in, year out, we have these challenges, and we seem not to have found a way of using the existing structure that we had to be able to fight these things. And so the idea of a special prosecutor is to be able to support that particular drive. And so when people say that they disagree with the president, I mean, those are things that you can give to them because, I mean, this is a democracy. People are entitled to that particular opinion. I have even had time to do a bit of reflection. And I think that sometimes we're missing a point. I'm not to downplay the word corruption itself. But if you look at the amount of irregularities and a lack of compliance and all of those things across board, and if you like, you want to take the Auditor General's report even 30 years back, you realize that almost every year the same things keep happening. Now, so for some of us who've had an opportunity to work in the private sector as well, no organization will be able to be that sustainable over that period if these things are happening. So I keep asking myself, is it the case that we are even missing a trick? And that's a collective conversation, a general conversation that this is 2021. You have a situation whereby if someone decides that an audit should be done, it's even after the fact, which means that the horses have already bolted. Yet year in, year out, the same issues happen, either compliance, irregularities, procurement challenges and everything. But I know that the reason why we even decided to have the Public Financial Management Act was to deal with some of these challenges. One of the institutions that was actually set up to be able to deal with that was the Internal Audit Agency, where you have the various agencies and public sector institutions having necessary to have an internal auditor in place to deal with some of these challenges. So the question is that, and sometimes in this country, we always think that everything that we have, or all the challenges that we have, are political challenges. When you ask yourself, how is it the case that there's an internal auditor who is mandated to look through the processes on how these transactions actually come out. And yet every year we have these challenges. It means that there's something administratively wrong even with the structure. You understand? And if we want to deal and solve the issues, and Franklin said something which made a lot of sense to me as well. I mean, there's this whole idea that, when we say we are fighting corruption, let's round up a couple of people, put them through the legal process, and throw them into jail. But the thing is that how do you solve a 12 billion Ghana cedi, if like gap or loophole, by throwing people into jail? Because we have history in this country where people have even been sent to the firing squad for things that are corruption related, and it still hasn't solved the challenges, right? So for me, I think that especially with the support of the CSOs, we need to start finding a more intellectual way of dealing with these challenges. How do you explain a situation where the Auditor General will go to like a district, for example, maybe spend 2 weeks or so there, stay in a hotel, all that, just to find out that, the district misappropriated, or through their process they find out there was irregularities of 30,000 Ghana cedis. And you find out that the cost of even that particular audit is even more than whatever it is that the irregularity. And then subsequent years, no systems have been put in place to ensure that that thing doesn't happen again. I have a challenge with that. Per my training on orientation, I have a problem with that. And so we can have the conversation, the political conversations as to, between the NPP and the NDC, which one is more corrupt or which one has the penchant for fighting corruption. However, the truth of the matter is that we need to look beyond that. And that is a concerted effort between, one, the CSOs, government agencies themselves, and even the various actors that are supposed to play specific roles. Because even when you're looking at this conversation about there's no water, the abattoir conversation, there's no water, there's no electricity, it's ridiculous. But is it really a corruption problem? No, I mean, we have to be candid. Like, is it really a corruption? It is a lack of proper planning, right? And somebody to be held responsible to the effect that how do you even come by an abattoir that has no water, has no electricity, and is actually being subsequently given to a prophetess or so? Sometimes we have to be very candid with ourselves in some of this conversation. Otherwise, what will happen is that we will continue having this MPP, NDC conversations. And the reality on the ground is that some of the issues, as far as I'm concerned, some of the issues, even when you're talking about procurement, you're looking at a country that probably has some of the best procurement laws everywhere, right? We've gone through, we have a PPA, the Act, if you want to do restrictive tendering, sole sourcing, all of these things, you have to go to Parliament for approval and all that. Yet, year in, year out, we're still having challenges. It means that there are certain things within that particular framework. And Franklin, anytime you listen to him, has this conversation, and I think that it makes a lot of sense about this whole procurement economy. How is it that I'm a company, I produce paper. If a state agency wants to buy paper, he has to come to Godfred, who is either a salesperson or a company or whatever, for that agency to get access to that paper. You understand? So you have to find a way of mirroring even what happens within the private sector in terms of how it's efficient in when it comes to issues to do with procurement, right? And mirror that and activate issues to do with even technology. We are talking about payments. Today, as we speak, you are a tech guy. We have probably the most sophisticated interoperability system in the world. Why is it that people are being paid for work that hasn't been done? Or why is it that a district assembly is meant to be taking cash and paying people 300 cedis, 400 cedis, 500 cedis, the thing is getting lost? You understand? So some of the conversations, as far as I'm concerned, borders on having a commitment to ensure that we deal with the administrative issues, we deal with the structural issues. Then, when there's issues surrounding corruption on big ticket items, things that as far as everybody is concerned, is really terrible. Then we focus our energies on that. Look at the Public Accounts Committee. For the last 30 years or 20-something years that we have this particular dispensation. Every year. You don't have to...
Hold. Are they sitting soon on this matter?
I'm sure they will start soon.
Right.
Yes.
So every year, it's the same issues. So you have an accountant at the ministry somewhere or an agency somewhere or local district assembly somewhere that is brought to Parliament to answer certain questions and everything. They go, and then you expect that next year things will be done properly. And it's not that. Somebody has to be held account for some of these discrepancies as far as I'm concerned. So we can have this conversation. And you see, when my good friend Suhey talks about Martin Amidu and the kind of things that he has said in this country, it presupposes that the logic or the analogy that he wants to present is that everything that Martin Amidu has said in this country is true.
Not necessarily.
But you see, if he goes...
His point was quite clear. His assumption is that if you believed him then, why should he not believe him now?
Okay, so should we believe everything that Martin Amidu has said about the NDC? But that is a bit disingenuous.
It is not. That I will side with Suhey.
It's up to you. You're entitled to that particular opinion.
I will side with Suhey on that.
So he goes on further to talk about the president granting an interview to CNN and everything. We all know about the infamous BBC interview that President Mahama granted when he was actually asked, have you taken
a bribe
before? And what was the answer? Today. So for me, I think that, yes, we can do the politics all we like. And for the good thing about me and Suhey is that we are a younger generation, a younger version of the old folks and the kind of politicking that we're used to. And sometimes it's all about finding pragmatic solutions to some of the challenges. For example, I have a friend who is an NDC guy, and he drew my attention to something that happens at GRA. And it made absolutely no sense to me. Somebody brings a vehicle into this country. That vehicle has a value. He's unable to pay the duty, right? Yet you auction the vehicle, right? Cheaper than even the cost of the duty. So it doesn't even get up to the value of the vehicle. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. And this is not political. And these are some of the things that, as far as I'm concerned, right, we should be, averting our minds to, right, and making sure that even at the institutional stage or at the agency stage, right, we are able to deal with this challenge. Nobody is saying that if there are issues to do with corruption or there are challenges when it comes to procurement issues and everything, we shouldn't have a conversation around that, But the truth of the matter is that the president was right.
Eric, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Keep your eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize, eyes on the scheme. You gon' need eyes behind your back. Who you looking at? Who's looking at you? Blinded by love, maybe you need a better view. All eyes on you, all eyes on you. Biggie's eyes on you, Biggie's eyes on you. World's eyes on you, world's eyes on you. So what you gon' do? So what you gon' do?
Readjust your vision for the all-new season of Big Brother Naija. Now streaming 24/7 on Showmax. Rated 18. Sign up at showmax.com.
I put my money on you. I put the dollar on you.
Your Saturdays just got frisky. This Saturday, City TV brings to your screens the matriarch of all entertainment shows, The Chat. The most dynamic panelists in the Ghanaian showbiz industry will bring the D to this entertainment discourse.
When you take a certain percentage of someone else's song, you see clearance. And clearly this one, it's more than 8 bars.
We discovered her. I think we watched one YouTube. We're like, nah, this girl, let's put her on.
That's it.
And from that time till now, I have seen super growth.
There are so many streaming platforms here in Ghana. If you go on either iOS app, like Apple Store or Google Play Store, there are so many apps owned by Ghanaians.
It'll be a red couch sitting full of conversations and updates on what your favorite entertainment personalities have been up to.
So I'm saying that anybody that wants to fix Kwame Eugene according to my kind of music, my kind of style, my kind of dressing, my kind of attitude, anything, you try as much as possible to fix yourself first before you fix me.
What are they doing? Who are they doing it with? And what trends have us fixated? We'll bring you up to speed. It will be an evening of artistic appreciation, indispensable hype, aesthetic punctuation, and the everything of the music and movie industries in Ghana, the African continent, and beyond. So grab some popcorn, get comfy, and join me, AJ Akwako Sapon, on the most riveting entertainment show in Ghana, The Chat. Comes your way this and every Saturday at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. only on City TV.
Your Sunday evenings just got better.
Fernandez, Greenwoods, breathtaking.
Catch all the thrills, the fun and the action right here on Ghana's fastest growing TV channel, City TV.
Here goes LeBron, bullies his way in.
As we review the weekend sporting action, providing the best analysis on your favorite sporting moments.
That young man from Uruguay, Valverde.
Yeah.
Wow, goodness me.
Federico.
He's an engine.
Barcelona are very disappointed in themselves because they've been all over the place since the restart. My point is, they've literally handed the title to Real Madrid.
This is where it all begins.
Akanji in towards Haaland, who gloves it on.
This is Scorecard with me, Fentu Otahiru Fentu. Every Sunday at 9 p.m. only on City TV.
Slight apologies, it happens, nature takes over sometimes. But I'm feeling much better, so we can continue. Yes, you're making a point, Eric.
Yeah, so I was just making the point that, yes, we can do the politicking, we can talk about issues, we can do comparisons. I mean, I can give you a plethora of examples as to issues of corruption that's happened over the period. I'm sure Suhini has a ton of them to talk about and all that. But the reality on the ground is that, and for me, I think that for the Ghanaian people, the reality on the ground is, I think that the talking is too much, right? They want to find out how you're able to plug a 12 billion Ghana cedi hole, which probably would go into a more efficient investment in certain areas of the economy that people actually need it, right? And so, yes, let's continue the discourse. But we need to find a way where some of these things that are perennial challenges, the perennial things that happen over and over again. Because, you see, if you do the same thing over and over again and you expect different results, okay, every year, let's put out a report. Let's go to the Public Accounts Committee. However, every year we have the same challenges. And I think that we need to start finding ways, especially structurally, administratively, to deal with these things. I mean, like the example I gave when it comes to an internal auditor within an organization. How is it the case that when these things happen, this internal auditor, for example, is not even given an opportunity or a platform to explain why it has happened to start with? Is it the case that the internal audit agency is not being given enough resources, or there are not enough internal auditors to deal with the challenge? Because, you see, it is better to have a proactive solutions to the issues than after the horses are bolted, you say, oh yes, let's present a report, let's bring a few people and take them through a legal process and then throw them in jail. But that does not deal with the challenges, right? And so let's find these things as extremely important. And even the Auditor General should go beyond this whole conversation about reports, right? Because there are all the various reasons for an audit. Right? So if you go through even the Auditor General and its vision and mission itself, it states categorically what it is meant to do. right? So we are supposed to juxtapose, let's say, what happened the previous year against what is happening like year on year, and say that, okay, when we went to Agency A, these are the challenges that we found. When we went there this time round, they've put these measures in place to forestall or to mitigate some of these challenges. Then that means that we are actually being progressive. But when it becomes, okay, let's find scapegoats, let's ensure that we'll present a report and name some people and say that they've been involved in these acts. And then again, if we want to be governed by the tenets of democracy and even the rules of natural justice, you realize that some of the agencies and the ministries that have been mentioned have had to come back, right, to bring clarity to bear in terms of the report and some of the things. You understand? And so the report itself is not final until you've gone through these processes. You understand? And that's the reason why sometimes there will be a report and then people would even have to go through the High Court process to challenge it and even back and forth. What tends not to happen is that even after there has been the clarification of some of the things that have been put out there, it doesn't come back to the public domain, right? And so we need to find ways to ensure that if it does come, and it happens that there's this conversation about SNIT, and I have seen the communicator has come from SNIT trying to explain some of these things, right?
SNIT have been explaining on different things this week.
Exactly, yeah. So when there's a conclusion to the matter, I expect that even you guys in the media fraternity would find out if these issues have been resolved, so that it's not something that is left there in the public domain as if there's something untoward has happened.
All right. But what I found interesting even with the SNIT one was they kept deleting their own responses. I was monitoring on Twitter. they post a response, then they delete it. And then they post it again, they delete it. Well, only they know where they were going. But frankly, let me come to you. Eric makes a very interesting point. On a couple, these things are happening. I'm sure you're part of the group that went to court to give the Auditor General the powers of surcharge, gave him enhanced powers. But Eric is saying we need to perhaps do more. He's spoken about perhaps relying on tech, becoming a bit more proactive as well. Do we need to enhance the powers? Because for a lot of people, this is becoming a process. Yeah, the Auditor General will release his report, we'll talk about it, and then get on with it. But what a lot of people miss is the amounts are getting higher. And I'm particularly alarmed at a 135% increase in irregularities that we can clearly see are linked with corruption. Some of these ones, let us not use semantics. A lot of these things, when you read their report, are born out of people holding bad intentions.
On the lighter side, once the state keeps growing, you expect that, and all these problems are unresolved, they also keep multiplying. So we need to start looking at the structure we have as a state, and as governments fill the roles that they perform in a state. It's important to ask ourselves whether there are things that we could start outsourcing to the private sector, so that we do not need so many people working for the government across the states, rather, for the government across the entirety of the country. It could be one way out. I understand when Eric makes a fine point about the fact that we have been probably we have the interoperability system that works right now. And maybe there could be some tech basis or tech solution to some of these problems. Maybe a central pool where as and when transactions are effected, they are then, put into a particular app, and then automatically these things are flagged immediately. But you see, like the Vice President keeps saying, that you can design technology, but when monsters and ghosts or principalities take over, then it's very difficult to solve these issues. I think there's a clear way of dealing with this matter. See, as the size of government grows, and as I said, these problems will continue to multiply, it would be important to look at unburdening the state or the central government of some of these duties. And by some of these duties, don't take me for the fact that I'm a libertarian and I'm looking for small government. But I think there's everything good to be said about that particular should I say, principle anyway. But at the moment, there are too many things to be procured. There are too many things to be done by a district office without any proper oversight. But then there's just a political appointee. Then clearly some of these infractions will continue to occur. But where some of the activities that the district may have to undertake, it's either done in partnership with some private sector folks. I'm not saying that private sector could not be corrupted, but at least we can begin to see the values of efficiency and somehow some sort of integrity systems that could enable the system to work and then ensure that the public purse is not particularly pillaged. So maybe we need to start looking at options of dealing with some of the functions of state. Agenda 1.1, for instance, I was looking out for a situation where the private sector could be partnered, so that the private sector could come in with some of the funding and ensure that at least 30% of government funding goes into these hospitals. The signals that we are interested in making sure that we break with the past where projects are undertaken by central government, but then they do not really get to pass. They are basically do not even last longer before they start deteriorating. We can start looking at options like that. And look, these things are cleverly done in some jurisdictions. I recall Papua New Guinea, there was a time when they were looking at tax credits to be given to companies that were partners in development. So companies like mining companies and big infrastructure-related companies were made to undertake certain infrastructure within some parts of the country. And the government virtually gave them tax credit for undertaking that. You don't hear anything like somebody has chopped money because of a procurement opportunity. But maybe you need to start looking at the options of using corporate responsibility in a profitable way.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Franklin. Sweeney.
Yes. Perfect. You see, it's important that we all appreciate how, corruption has affected our forward march as a country over the years. Indeed, it is the one single reason that runs through the change in governments, whether through the ballot box or through the barrel of the gun. The main issue that has run through all changes we have experienced in government has been the issue of corruption. And so it tells you that leadership is important. We have always known and we have always argued, whether we are discussing the realities or the politics, we have always agreed that leadership is important in finding a solution that, can, ameliorate the situation as far as the scourge of corruption is concerned. And that is why when I listen to my brother Eric, and he talks about all the examples I can give and all the examples he can give about corruption that happened in the past and corruption that happens now, the issue is not resolved. I disagree with him, because I like that discussion, because it is through that discussion that we can perhaps find the kind of leadership that, even if it is not addressing the problem holistically, but is making steps, even if they are baby steps, towards resolving those problems. Look, I'll give you a typical example. Despite all the examples that Eric knows and may have touted in the past, President Mahama and the NDC's worst performance in terms of corruption, Transparency International report, was 70 out of 180 countries. That was the ranking. That was the worst. From 2013, that was the worst. The best performance under this current leadership, and let us not kid ourselves that corruption didn't play a role in 2016. It did.
Yes.
It did. Yeah, so if we change to get better, and under this administration, after 4 years, the best performance is 75th.
But since
I mean,
hold on.
What goes into
Eric, he kept quiet when you were talking. Let me just do him something.
Yeah. So,
but if you are a political watcher, 2016 it did matter.
Yeah, it did.
2020, even your party didn't make too much of an issue on corruption.
We did. We spoke a lot about corruption. Go listen to President Mahama. Go listen to the running mate, Professor Jane. Go listen to almost all that thing. We did. Listen to our conversations. We highlighted all the corrupt issues and the need to investigate them and prosecute people who were culpable. We did. Sometimes, I mean, like I said, I tend to envy this administration and by extension the president. So
maybe your cases are not as strong.
But let me proceed with the point I was making. So I'm saying that leadership is important. So if we change leadership, because corruption was such a big deal, and we're 70 out of 180 countries, and we couldn't tolerate that. And so we wanted a new leadership that would give us a new direction. But under that leadership, the best performance is not even 70, but 75. 4 years. Where, I mean, have we gone or have we come? And I was telling you of an example I want to share with Youth Employment Authority. What happened? There were media allegations about how misapplications of funds and irregularities were occurring there. What did leadership do? I'm telling you how leadership should be used to resolve some of these problems that we see at institutions that result in like the 12 billion that we are told have been lost. What did leadership do at the time? Leadership instituted investigations into those media allegations, found some of those allegations to be true, and also found out reasons why some of those things were happening. For example, there was no, governing law for the operations of the Youth Employment Agency at the time. So what happened? Leadership had to bring an act to Parliament to regularize the activities of YEA. Some who had to be punished were punished. In fact, the president talks about it all, the former president talks about it all the time with sadness, that he had to prosecute one of his best friends and colleagues in Parliament, Abuga Pele. Monies were retrieved. And as we speak, YEA is in a better state, than it was. I mean, in a better state, yes, than it was. Why? Because it now has an act governing its operations and procurement. So even if there are irregularities happening there, it is going to be less compared to what it used to be because leadership took action. So leadership is important. And so if you have a leadership that, just oversees everything and sometimes even engages in those big ticket corrupt activities, like the Ameris, like the PDS, and all those things, it becomes difficult for you, like the finance minister spending outright giftness. Remember, giftness was also another leadership decision to regulate these irregularities. A finance minister under Setekpe decided that we needed to control expenditure even at the district levels, so that government could control what is spent even at that level by way of awarding contracts. So everything had to go to a system that you could verify and follow through payments. Government is a leadership decision. And if there are irregularities today, experts will tell you it would have been worse without GIFMITs.
Okay.
So
wrap up.
So the point should not be lost on us that even as we appreciate the fact that this is an age-old problem, it either gets better or worse depending on the attitude and approach of leadership. And don't take my words, take the rating of a recognized agency that says that in the last 4 years, leadership attitude has not been supportive of the need to stem the tide. And indeed, the purpose of this discussion, what's in the state of this discussion, the CSOs, in their presentation to the president, they pointed to the Afrobarometer survey. Their speakers pointed and said that it has showed that the commitment at the leadership level has waned, according to the report of Afrobarometer. So it is time for those in charge not to let us have those hypothetical discussions of how to resolve the problem, but to really, get the bull by the horns and do what has to be done, like their predecessors may have done, even if they were baby steps. Let us see them taking those baby steps so that we can have, interventions like GiveMates that will improve the system, even if not holistically, but improve it a little. We can have, approaches that will improve institutions like the Youth Employment Authority, like we saw in the case of the previous administration. Let us see that. But when you have a situation where the president, especially who is supposed to be concerned about these things, is very eager to hit his chest and beat his chest and talk about successes and how well he's doing, when the records don't show, then you don't have even the confidence and the hope that anything will be done. Because it is when you admit that something is wrong that you can perhaps, be convinced that some actions have to be taken.
Thank you very much, Eric. Quickly, so we can call it a day.
It's very important that sometimes we contextualize these conversations, right? You were having a previous conversation around even hospitals.
Yes.
Now, this government has been able to get to a point where the cost of building a hospital is way cheaper than has happened in the past.
That is
Let me finish.
Let me
finish. We would get to that point. You remember these infamous take or pay agreements that were signed by the NDC,
the power deals,
and all of those things, and you look at a government that has come in and the amount of money that have been saved in some of these,
which has also been proven to be wrong.
No, but you see, you were quiet. I was quiet when you were. I was quiet, extremely quiet. And I'm giving you.
I asked the finance minister the question. Thank you.
Let me finish. I'll give you. I like to give relevant. I like to give relevant examples.
I know,
right?
Go on.
You see, then even this conversation around interchanges and everything, you can do a comparison between the infamous Circle Dubai and what has happened in Pokwasi and all that. You see, it is important that we eschew some of these over-politicization of this conversation, right? And I think that Suhuyini and co believe that that is probably the best way to go about this conversation. But I don't. Really? My orientation is totally different when it comes to this conversation. And that's why I even posited in the beginning that we can give so many examples. But how do you, compare a situation whereby things that were done 3, 4, 5 years ago were way more expensive than what is happening today? The government has decided to put measures in place in terms of the prudent management of the economy. They're even talking about things about our, deficit and all of those things and things that have happened over the period. There's a government in the past that even the Office of Government Machinery, where sometimes 100% in excess when it comes to budgets, allocations, and all that. We've come away from all of those things.
Have we?
Right? Yes, we have.
Eric, we have not.
No, we have. And you can do a comparison, and you can go and
look at the numbers daily.
Listen. You see, you can look at that, right? You can look at that, and maybe next time that we get an opportunity to come on this platform, we will do that comparison. Okay. So all I'm saying is that
you have 30 seconds.
Can even do a comparison of the Afrobarometer reports and what goes into those reports.
What the outcomes are.
And what the outcomes are. And so sometimes it's not the case to start having conversations about we are 75th, we are 85th, and all of those things.
Eric, who is now Kosoko's commercial manager, and is refusing to explain certain things to me, but we'll deal with it off camera. Thank you very much.
I understand why
have a good weekend.
Appreciate the